What's going on, everyone? So today was Lakers Media Day, and it was terrible, in my opinion. Um, None of the media really asked any real questions, in my opinion, from a basketball sense. It was all kind of just like generalized, like, how do you feel that, you got the same team back? What do you think of the outside noise? Do you feel like the Lakers are an underdog rather than like really getting down to the basketball reasons for each individual player? They were all just like the same generic questions asked to each player rather than like, hey, Austin, what have you changed? What have you worked on? What is your overall role? How do you plan on, being more improved from last season? Last season, you were very inconsistent, right? What are you doing to be more consistent this season, right? It was just like, you don't post a lot on social media. And Austin Reeves is like, well, yeah, I just don't believe in it. But, I worked. Like, most of the things the players were throwing out there, right? Like, Austin was just like, when they were like, you don't post a lot. He was like, yeah, but I'm working out every day. This is what I was doing. This is how I was. But instead of the media asking or phrasing the question in that manner of like, hey, Austin, you don't post a lot. What have you done this offseason to improve not only your body, but, your shooting, your inconsistencies from last season? How can that overflow, right? Like, it just, there were no real, like, insights into breaking down improvements for this season. It was just like, have you talked to JJ Redick? Like, yeah. Like, what has he talked about you for a role? Yeah, I want to crash on this. It's just like each individual player is going to have a specific role. I would have liked to kind of get down to the meat and potatoes of those things. Like Rui, what are your improvements? What do you see yourself doing on the basketball court? How do you better improve on the defense? Because he talked about, I can defend 1 through 5. All right, why not? Okay, well, you had your struggles defensively last year. What have you done to improve to better defend 1 through 5? Rather than just like letting him, again, what happened to media integrity? What happened to really kind of asking the questions? It was just kind of like just generic same question to every player rather than like each individual player being its own individual player that is going to have their own individual impacts. What have you worked on? How have you improved? Right? I wanted to know kind of the ins and outs from a basketball standpoint, from a basketball perspective, how you're going to be better this year. What have you guys talked about? I know obviously they haven't gone into training camp, but still they have an idea. They've talked. They've all had these private workouts and stuff like that. I mean, they've all talked about it. But one of the things that I did like that was discussed was, JJ Redick and his attention to details, right? A lot of players settle jabs at Darvin Ham I thought were funny, especially like D'Lo. To be fair, Darvin Ham like completely threw D'Lo under the bus on his way out. But, they all talked about JJ's basketball IQ, his attention to details, how he's really emphasizing certain things on the basketball court, ways to improve, just the coaching staff in general. And I really like that, right? Because one of the problems with Darvin Ham was his lack of preparation, his lack of attention to details, his lack of just emphasizing things that need to be corrected. And everybody kind of made it a point of emphasis that, hey, JJ Redick is basically the opposite, right? He's very detail oriented. They talked about they're going to do a conditioning. I think it was Christian Wood was the one that mentioned it, that they're going to be doing a conditioning test coming up, right? That everyone's going to have a conditioning test. Like, I like those things, right? Like Miami is known for that. You talk about heat culture and stuff like that. Like, you have to be a certain like body fat percentage. You have to pass a certain conditioning test if you want to be on the roster, if you want playing time and stuff, right? Like, they're very strict on certain things. And, heat culture is famous for heat culture, right? So the Lakers kind of implementing some of those things and being a lot more strict and being a lot more like, no, hey, like this is going to be a system. This is going to be a real thing here. I really like that. I really like that that was a point of emphasis, that JJ is clearly, everything that he's saying, he's actually implementing everything he's talked about, and the idea and perception of why JJ is supposed to be a good head coach. The players are kind of reiterating, every player kind of essentially said the same thing, that like, hey, he is very like on top of things. He is very detail oriented. That's what you want to see. That's what you want to hear. But, from the individual player standpoint, I really wanted to, JJ's talked about and answered and directed questions about players better than the media has. And it's like, this was your opportunity. This was your moment. This was your time here. Right? Like, I'm glad we got some insight, Jared Vanderbilt, but like they didn't really like, everything was kind of vague. It just, no one really pushed anything. Even like D'Lo, some of the things he said, but the controversial thing he said got pushed on, right? Like when he was talking about, like, I know there's a lot of negative things about me or whatever, right? That of course got a follow-up little nudge. Why? Because that's a headline. It's a headline, baby. Just like, and I did a whole video on As It Stands Lakers, so I won't go into it too much here. But like, just like the same thing with the Dalton Connect and Bronny James interview. Why would you have Bronny James and Dalton Connect interviewing together? I understand, right? Because they had like Jalen Trevino and Maxwell Lewis together. And I understand as rookies, like, it's usually how it goes. On any other situation, that's fine. But you knew. And I'm more mad at the Lakers organization than anything, because everybody knew Bronny James was going to get all the questions. Bronny James was going to be the one that was going to get the focus. And Dalton Connect would just kind of fade into the background. And that's exactly what happened. And I'm bothered because, the Lakers should have, like, Bronny James is likely not doing anything for the Lakers this season. He's talked about playing in the G League. The Lakers have talked about him playing in the G League, right? I am on Team Bronny. Like, I think he has a ton of potential to be a very good player. I've defended Bronny a lot. But this is, the media continues to kind of validate the fans that are critical of Bronny. Because it's just like, they weren't even basketball questions. It was like, even Bronny talked about how, how he knows his role on this team and he's going to work hard to do that. And there was no follow-up to that. There was no like, oh, well, what's your role on this team? Were you relayed that? Do you just have an idea of what it is? Like your own personal assessment? Are you going to be a primary ball handler? Did they say you actually have a chance for rotation minutes? Or are you spending time in the G League? None of it. It was the same question asked 15 times, just phrased in a different way. Like, oh, how do you feel about you and your dad? Like, I don't care about that. We all know that. We already did all that. If you want to ask the one question, have somebody, be the person that sets that up and says that first, fine. Go ahead. Like, if you want to have that one person come in and just go, hey, Bronny, just to kind of get it out the way, how do you feel about, you and your dad and this media day, and, and then just be done with it, and then ask some real basketball questions and actually talk to Dalton Connect. But instead, Dalton Connect just faded to the background. They didn't ask him any question. And Dalton Connect's the guy that is actually going to be on the roster, is expected to have rotation minutes, and could potentially have a real impact on this team. But it's about the headlines. There is no media integrity anymore. Like I said, the only thing that got a follow-up was the controversial statement that D'Lo said. Because that's a headline. Ooh, we get a headline, right? Like, outside of that, it was all just the same question about Bronny a dozen times. They only care about the headline rather than the actual basketball sense. Last I checked, this is a basketball team. Last I checked, this is, a Lakers team that is expected to play 82 games. And it was just so frustrating. it's just disappointing. I'm excited for the season. I wanted this to be an opportunity to kind of get some information and some insight on the Lakers as a whole, and we didn't get any of it. Like, I don't know where guys stand. I don't know really what guys have improved on or worked on or anything like that. I don't know what the schemes are. I don't know anything because they didn't give us anything. They didn't relay anything. Like, the media day, like, all of the questions for the media was just, they were silly. It was pointless questions. And I just felt like this was a real good opportunity to really kind of put us in a position to, like, really understand where the Lakers are, where some of these players are. And it wasn't. It was just disappointing, in my opinion. Like, I feel like there's still as many questions as there were going into Media Day, and I was hoping that some of those questions would be answered. Now, look, there's all the private interviews and stuff like that for various platforms and stuff, and I'm going to go through all those and see what kind of things that maybe weren't asked on the main media front. But the main media front was terrible. It was terrible. So I'm hoping that maybe some other outlets ask some real questions. We'll find out. But I do like that, so Wood said that he's expected to ramp up in about 2 weeks. He sounds like he's about at least a month away. So it looks like he won't be back till November-ish, sometime in November. Because he said he's 2 weeks away from starting to ramp up, and then he said about another 2 weeks before he can likely get cleared. So talking about a month. Vando kind of was vague, as he should. Vando and D'Lo were very, like, off-putting in these interviews, which I thought was interesting. D'Lo kind of in this weird spot, and in D'Lo's defense, like, the first question was like, how do you feel that the that the media hates you, essentially? So, but I will say I did love what I heard from Max Christie. Right, and I'm probably gonna have to do a video independently on Max Christie because I did really like the things that Max Christie said. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. Pass question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? How do you feel about just this media day? How do you feel about what was said? Were you disappointed as I was in the media day, or did you think like, I just felt like, in previous media days, like even last year's media day, I thought asked just far better questions personally. But anyway, again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit the subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.